Greetings. Thank you for being here. Woo-hoo. We have a fun-packed video today. So this is part 2 of the Haida people. So it is Haida. It's pronounced Haida. I did some research just to make sure I was pronouncing it correctly, and I was wrong with the X sound, but I think that just shows a tremendous amount of information as to language, because their X makes an H sound. So, and I think that is similar in, let's see, Aleph, because it looks like an X and it can be a silent sound. And I'm just kind of linking. I've been doing a little bit more research on the Grand Canyon, a little bit more research on divine goddesses and deities, especially in the Americas. And more information is just showing up that it's true. It's from here. But, well, some people are catching the matriarchy side of it. I'm going to post a couple videos in my community. Some of them are kind of long. Some of them are a little shorter. But it goes into writings of people of, quote-unquote, supposedly the time. Okay? And confirming these cities and communities and just megalithic type, the word we're given, gigantic type artifacts and treasures. It's fascinating. Ultimately, the matriarch, you can see the matriarch, but and some people are talking about it and some people kind of skip right over it. We have it documented. I mean, as far as what it seems like from the people's stories, all these original groups were matriarchal first. So, with that said, I'm going to start with a little how I left off the ending part of the last video, speaking about the Haida people. In that most indigenous or aboriginal cultures, we're having a lot of discovery, especially when it comes to wording. So aboriginal, the original peoples of the lands. Indigenous also can refer to that. Also, I won't get into that. But language, when it comes to language, indigenous has more than just aboriginal is specific, whereas indigenous can have several meanings. Okay? Thank you, my friend. You know who you are for re-educating me to that. So, while I was researching the Haida people and more indigenous American Aboriginal deities, creator deities specifically, the prompt to click on American indigenous mythology or indigenous peoples of the Americas mythology. So they all have different mythology. I mean, some can be very similar. They all have mythologies. And what is kind of the coolest thing is that, so I've talked about Great Spirit and the Great Creation myths and oral tradition. This is something you'll see consistently, and this isn't just in the Americas. You can go to the Aboriginal people all around the lands of this realm, Earth, Gaia, goddess, planet we're on, or landmass with a lot of water. Across the board, you will see it across the board, in the sense that most, and including the American indigenous people, most mythology stories are based around the elements. sky, the moon, the sun, the earth, wind, fire, earth, rocks, trees, and I would say fire and water. So many water deities. As a matter of fact, most cultures' beginning deities are water deities. You'll see that also, not just in the Americas and a lot more in South America, but all over the Americas. So I just wanted to kind of get that there. We see a lot of stories about the coyote and the narratives associated with religion, ethics, and beliefs. And so what I've started recognizing also is you can see the carryover into our governments or our religions and where they came from. They came from the Aboriginal Indigenous peoples in the Americas. And more in these videos that I'll be posting have confirmation to that. Now, some of the stories are written from the perspective of what they had also been taught, which is that everyone came from the Africa that's, here. And then also in one of them, I was so excited when I discovered this last night because I was looking up Tartaria, and there is a Chinese writings about the giant tree, the Grand Canyon. I'm telling you, all this stuff's gonna start coming out. Okay, so I wanted to start there before I got into the Haida, just to give validation to where spirituality and quote-unquote religion was before what we see today. And then what I started seeing and is when the gender is being left out of certain things. I'm pretty convinced that it's the divine feminine or the females of our species that are being described, because why typically they go into great detail about idols or bones, things that are discovered, and I think when they don't, it's because it solidifies the Great Mother's firstness and her authority, and it's changing. But okay, so the Haida people, and I was going to talk about their goddess Tia. So there's not a lot of information about this goddess other than that she and her counterpart or her brother, where did I write his name down? She is the goddess of peaceful, and I have to be careful with this word on YouTube, peaceful transition to the other side is what I wrote, so that it can be, but the direct word is the one that, okay? And then her brother is, or her counterpart is the god of a not so peaceful transition, okay? So there are what are called the sins Sagan Nagawa-i, which I mentioned in the other video. Sins Sagan Agua-i, or Agua-i. And that being is what is in that language power of the shining heavens. This would be something we would call maybe the spark of life, or and to me the Great Mother. And this being gives the Signa Guidas, which I kind of relate to, if you're not aware. So it would be like saints in Catholicism, or the Orishas, or the Santos in Santeria, or in the pantheon of the Yoruba religions, or Ifa. Okay, and so to me, what I'm seeing is it's here in the Americas, but we're constantly shown that it comes from somewhere else. and my theory is it all either happened at the same time, which is in one of the videos I'm going to share with y'all on my channel, and that the sounds, the language, the writings, you can see this, and that's also in one of the videos, how language seems to have come from the Americas. Okay, I'm just saying. Okay, so these beings, this we're still talking about the Haida people, okay? Haida peoples. The Xaaydas were able to transform from human to animal. So in their tradition, there is shapeshifting, and typically from animal to human and vice versa. And one of their main characters is the raven. Okay, and the raven to them is both the troublesome, rambunctious, stubborn creator being, and also this tenacious, patient, life-giving creator energy. So I'm going to share a little bit. So the raven is one of their central characters. It can also be a trickster. And then raven or Ya'ah to be a complex reflection of one's own self. They are considered the magician, the transformer, a potent cultural force, a ravenous debaucherer, always a cultural hero. Raven created Haida, Gua, the island that was once given Queen Charlotte's name and then returned. So Raven created Haida Gua, releasing the sun from its tiny box, making the stars and the moon. And also there are two stories. There's one that the raven released the first humans from a cockle shell on the beach, and there was another story that raven allowed humans to come up from the ground because raven was having a party and wanted enough people for the party. So I was like, that is so cool. Okay, and the stories are on one level to teach listeners how to live a good life, and by counter example usually, and that raven has been also has been described as the greediest, most lecherous, and mischievous creature known to the Haida. Also, at the same time, raven often helps humans in our encounter with spiritual natural beings, which we've seen that spoken in many cultures and assigned to many deities, including many goddesses. Okay, the raven never actually creates anything, didn't actually make the world, but it created everything by taking and exchanging, redistributing, and generally moving things around. So I thought that was really cool. That animals, and then we'll see that also. I mentioned that in the last video. So you'll see also creator animal beings oftentimes, and we've heard stories like this before. There are stories about, like, for example, I won't quote that for sure until I get some information for sure about that. But we'll see, and you'll see a link here in the Americas, but you have seen, if you have looked into the Egyptian symbols, a crocodile goddess. Well, we have Thoth, which is a bird. So you'll see this. This is not, I think it comes from here, is my point. And anyhow, okay. So, here we go. Tia and Ta-Ext. She's the goddess of peaceful. He is the god of violent, never. And then, and then there is, so here's some other creator deities of the Haida people. Xaalarons, or Hans, Xaalarons, a female associated with frogs and volcanoes, and Their counterpart is the bear god, Kaiti. And then there is Gehild Epitus, a forest goddess, which is very interesting because I'm pretty positive I did a video about a Gehilda or Hilda being also associated to, it is a goddess that is also associated to the forest. Interesting, right? Okay. Lagua is an invisible spirit who helped the Haida discover the uses of iron. And shamans in their culture could speak with the Lagua by clenching their teeth. Interesting. They're in relation to words and accreditations that we associate with English. Well, here's a fun one. Sky or sky, Skaay, and Gahandal. Okay, so this story has been handed down, but this is a being that so Sky was a blind, crippled storyteller of the Haida village of Tanu in 1827. They could neither read nor write, but his stories of Haida mythology have survived in the form of written transcription. And the stories Sky chose to dictate are the Wuana cycle, the longest poem recorded in Haida. And they appear 3 times in church records. First in 1884 when he was baptized. And so in Haida, sky refers to a type of mollusk. The Haida were divided into 2 special groups. The Moaites, called raven and eagle. Sky belonged to the eagle side of the Moaiety. The Moaites? How did I miss that? Moaites? Okay, I gotta click on it. Moaites, kinship, anthropology, kinship, the web of social relationships. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And this is across the board, also in Aboriginal or Indigenous cultures, from what I'm gathering with this word. So I mentioned sky because there was a bigger story to that. But that person ended up in their stories. Now, I'm going to show some pictures of, this is, oh, no. This is, I apologize. Don't want to show that picture. That's not, I will eventually. Okay. And Gahandel. So these are both authors who helped to hold on to mythology and oral traditions. So Sky is the first one, and it's just the relation to the sound of the name and the word that we use to describe something. This is what this word meant in the Haida language. And then with Gahandel, is Gahandel of the Kwali La'anas was born in 1851 in the Haida village. So these are both Haida people who have made it was part of their lives to share the Haida mythology. So they are included in connection to their mythology. Okay. So, and then also there's Barbara and Cameron, who recently passed away, but also spent her life writing poems and certain stories about the Haida people. And while I was researching the Haida people, I also, because in one of the videos we talked about their art. Well, one of their wearings, one of their ceremonial blankets, shawls, wear, kind of like this, but without the sleeves, is called a chilkat robe. And how those are made, so many of us have seen weaving with a loom. How they weave is they have pieces that hang down. There's no bottom. There's pieces of, and it can be different types of material, but it's usually something along the lines of sheep. I said sheep, but I think I did write it down. I might not have written it down, but from what I remember, animal hair. Okay, what animals were available to them, that hair. And so I say sheep, but I think it's more like elk, dog, and maybe deer. However, what they would do is how they weave is from kind of the top down, or they'll add in the weaving as they go and end up with these just amazing pieces of art. So, okay. So here is a picture that I found. So the loom is at the top, but then you can see, especially on the sides, they're still part of the robe to be made over here. Okay. And this has been going on for a long time, so it's really interesting how most cultures you see like the loom where it has a bottom where it would be the ending of, say, the stitch or the pattern, whereas this pattern is created as you go. However, there are usually only certain colors that are used, which are black, white, yellow, and blue. However, I've seen other colors. So here's an example of a completed and an otherwise older example of the Chilkat robe, regalia. Here is a Kawangal woman wearing the same fringed, and it doesn't say when this photo was taken, but it looks older. And I'm going to kind of zoom in a little bit because you know why. Okay. She's also wearing a mask, but not amazing. We'll see another, and you can see the fringe at the bottom. And so fringe is also something that has been recognized by cultures for, and this is also, you'll see this also in many other cultures, fringe. Okay, and here is this is Chief Antukosh Taku wearing a chilkat. I'm not sure if he was Haida. What? I'm not sure. All right. And you will see this among a lot of, so someone made a comment about kind of like the Alaskan and Canadian art. The people, so we have the Tlingit and the Klukwan, and we have the Shalish. I mean, we have a lot of groups that are in that area, a lot of tribes that are in that area that have similar art, or similar looking art. Okay. So, yeah, the looms used in Chilkat weaving only have a top frame. And so they wrap the threads while they hang freely. And the weaver works in vertical sections as opposed to moving horizontally, which we see in a lot of looms, or, as I was saying before, pattern work. And they work horizontally from end to end, so each side. So consequently, many designs are broken into vertical columns. As with most Northwest Coast art, these columns are bilaterally symmetrical. And then we also see that we'll see and hear constantly the magic of the cultures. Okay, the magic of the cultures. And the reason why I'm sharing the two videos in my community with y'all is the one that goes into Tartaria, talks about Tartaria in the Americas, and a link between the indigenous peoples and Tartaria, which is something I have been theorizing for a long time, because if everything was matriarchal first, and the mothers were the first teachers, and the first, or the most tangible, oldest possible place from what I've remembered and have been given messages from Great Mother, goes back to the Grand Canyon. It's a tree that's been confirmed. And it holds, side note theory. Okay. Because of the wealth inside of the Grand Canyon, a reserve, so to speak. Because isn't money backed by gold? And I want to mention this. So when I had gone to South Africa, before I went to South Africa, I was going to bring gold. I was going to bring some, because we were invited to bring and gift things when we went, because it's part of the program that we were in through school, and also it's part of the culture, which we can relate to, because that is also something fairly common around the world, which is when you go somewhere, you like to bring a gift or bring things from that place that you can share in a different place. And so some of the requirements specifically for students, and we were going to stay in houses with people, and so we were encouraged to bring a gift. So I was going to bring gold. No, I can't remember what it was, but it was something along the lines of, like, I think it was that. Is that correct? Oh my gosh, I got my bracelet caught up. You know, I feel like I'm having the opposite in my mind. I brought silver because they said they didn't have a lot of silver there. Is that right? Okay, where I was going with that is, from what I thought I had remembered, is that I had brought something opposite of what they had a lot of. And so I'm sure it's in one of my journals somewhere, but I think I ended up bringing silver instead of gold, because the theory is that there was a lot of gold there, but I think when I got there, it was the opposite. I can't remember. I feel like I shouldn't have said that part. But the side note part that I was mentioning is, in all of these stories, it's like, and we've heard the stories, like, in search of gold. Well, in the Grand Canyon, supposedly tons and tons and tons and tons of gold, which is what money is supposed to be backed by. So wouldn't it be an appropriate reserve, so to speak? I don't know. Just a side note theory. Okay, so we talked about, that's a lot of the Haida people. There is quite a bit of information online and on YouTube if you're more interested in doing a little bit more research on the Haida people. Next, I will be going into, I'm going to do a little research on on one of the tribes that I was recently introduced to that's more local and a little bit more personal in the sense of like the person, who is related to that tribe. Like, I'd like to know about a little bit more about that tribe, because what I also keep finding is the link to us who have been removed from that memory, removed from our own history here in the Americas. So to add on to this, I also, of course, have been doing some research in the Women's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets, and wanted to talk about a couple of things. So one of the things I read, I'm going to pause this real quick because, hold on. I'll just take the bracelet off for now. Okay, so of course when I open, I open the book like, okay, Mother, what can I sink my teeth into this time as far as learning about us and our amazing connections to so much of what we haven't been privy to, if that makes sense, right? So many kind of downloads and ideas and theories, very, very much validated and solidified by this book. So I had started with, oh my gosh, I think I started with Ka. And I have the book because there's so much, always so much in this book. And so I feel like regardless, specifically us sea stars, this book, I am so grateful for finding the person that introduced me to this. So thank you very much. And I'm so grateful. It explains so many things and really links so many things back to her and the Great Mother. Okay, so I think it was Ka was my first that I had looked up. And Ka is, so my theory is, not my theory is, but from what I've read, Ka is similar to like Chi. It's the life force energy, and Ka can be extremely magical. So it's related to the umbilical cord, and you don't want to. There are some stories throughout different cultures where if you keep the Ka and bury it and do certain rituals that you can protect the child, it's a link to their soul, and. Okay. Ever since ever. Really? These flies, I'm telling you. They're like, it's a winter time. Please let us keep alive for a little longer. Okay. One of an Egyptian's 7 souls, Ka. One of an Egyptian's 7 souls, often believed to be a spirit twin resident in the afterbirth. Okay, that's in Egypt. And the Shiluks of Upper Nile, the Shiluks, I'm sorry, but didn't I just do a video about the Shahalish? I don't know. I know it's spelled similar. Just saying. Okay. Upper Nile, So, this group, who in the present century still worshipped the cow mother Hathor as a bestower of souls, they buried afterbirths of their sacred kings in the same tombs where the kings themselves would be laid, on the theory that a man needed his ka in order to become a god after death. In ancient Egypt, prayers were addressed to the ka of Osiris and other gods. India knew the same concept, even the same word. Brahma had a soul twin named Ka, which was translated who. Like who? The hieroglyphic sign of Ka was a pair of upraised arms with bent elbows, like this, Ka. And without going into great detail, without reading every single thing, it is said that by holding the hands like this, especially the Great Mother, were able to successfully win wars or get what they wanted by holding this position. Okay? And it is said that the same magical Ka invocation was performed by Moses at the battle between the Israelites and the Amalekites. The Israelites won because Moses, with the help of Aaron and Hur, held up his arms in the Ka position all day until the battle ended. Okay? So then, okay, I wanted to get to there some part I did talked about. So it can be related to like a doppelganger, but what you considered is there is a twin soul thought to reside in the placenta or the umbilical cord. Okay, so from there, then there's Kaaba, and the Kaaba is the sacred stone in Mecca, formerly dedicated to the pre-Islamic triple goddess Manat, Alat or Allah, and Al-Uzza, the old woman. And I think I shared a video. Mama T did some videos on those triple goddesses. The old woman worshipped by Muhammad's tribesmen and the Qurayshites. Okay. The stone was also called Kubaba, Kuba, or Kube, or Cube. Cube, Kube, Kube, or Kube, and has been linked with the name Cybele, Kybele, the great mother of the gods. The stone bore the emblem of the Yoni, like the black stone worshipped by Votaris of Ametrius, of Artemis, the votaries of Artemis, and I did a video about Artemisia. Now it is regarded as the holy center and of patriarchal Islam, and its feminine symbolism has been lost, which is why I like to share these videos, because everything is us. And the priests of the Kaaba are still known as sons of the old woman. Okay, so I was like, wait, Cybele is in here, and I hadn't looked it up. Okay, so I then went to Cybele. Actually, before Ka, I had looked up Omphalos. That was my first real dig into this. So what's interesting is, I went from Othalos, which actually means umbilicus, Omphalos, umbilicus, cord, and the link to the circle and the oh my gosh, I think it's Ophiuchus, not Ophiuchus, it might be Ophiuchus, but the snake eating its tail, the cycle, and the umbilical cord. And so it was interesting because then I went to Ka, which I don't think was in there. It might have been. Let's see. We'll talk about the Ka. But Omphalos. What did I say? Umbilicus? No, I wrote Omphalos. I don't know. Omphalos. I said that. Okay. Greek transliteration is Latin umbilicus, the navel or hub of the world, center of the goddess body, source of all things. as every ancient nation regarded its own version of the Great Mother as the cosmic spirit. So its own capital chief temple was located at the center of the earth, marked by the stone omphalos that consecrated the mother's essence. And we're going to talk about the word essence real quick. It's very close to Essene. And if you learn about the Essenes and their extremely healing ways and ways that they look at the planet and earth and nature, I could see how essence, when we talk about the essence of something, I could see the word relation. Just throw that out there. Side note. Okay. And the Omphale represented the goddess as a consumer of sun kings, each one annually replaced by another who was born at the winter solstice. So, I apologize. Omphale, what? I'm reading. Oh, so there's Omphale, which is the Lydian name of a goddess of the hub, and is a navel stone. And then we have Omphalos, which is Greek. Okay. Of course, like the Greeks and Romans had, it still goes back to Greek, but I'll just show you what happened. So here's what I'm reading from, and here's what I started reading, because it's carryover from the other side. You can't really see it, but I just wanted to show you how I did that. Anyhow, so from there, I went to Cybele, or Sybil, and oh my goodness. So I'm going to share that with you, and then, I wrote that down. Cyrene. I don't know where I got that from, but we'll find out. So in the Cybele, I'm getting to a point because we're in witchy season, quote unquote, October. I think wintertime in general is, I think every time is witchy time, but it seems to be a collaboration in witchy time around this time of year, a visual collaboration, which is pretty cool. And I'll talk a little bit about Halloween if I remember before the end of this, and if I forget, then I will try to make sure I put it in the next video before All Hallows Eve, which is what it really is. But so one of the main things I wanted to share with you guys about the Sybil or Cybele, because it's spelled Cybele, and I have done videos on this out of the Book of Spirits, man, which she dug into. I was just, I think I cried with joy. But one of the main things they talk about in here is that the female's connection to earth and her magical powers connection to earth. You will also see that along with the indigenous aboriginals of the Americas and around the world, putting your feet on the ground, touching a tree, being in nature constantly, or in the water constantly, being able to move and manipulate weather, being able to do, like, fly, go into different realms, talk to other people, go to the past, go to the future. These were all things that we were like, yeah, that's, Whereas now it's like new agey, and people are still intimidated by those words and the interpretations we've been given. With that said, this is why, so I've had a theory about shoes, especially high heels for females, because my theory is the further off the ground they can get us, the more control they have over us. And in studying what she wrote about Cybele, absolutely, it was one of the ways. That is why you'll see depictions of so-called witches, specifically females, lifted off the ground, carrying them, because the theory was it was a way to disconnect them. And this was under Cybele. So, 1 of the main things I wanted to share with you guys about the Sybil or Cybele, because it's spelled Cybele, and I have done videos on this out of the Book of Spirits, man, which she dug into. I was just, I think I cried with joy. But one of the main things they talk about in here is that the woman's the female's connection to earth and her magical powers connection to earth. You will also see that along with the indigenous aboriginals of the Americas and around the world, putting your feet on the ground, touching a tree, being able to move and manipulate weather, being able to Okay, and then the names that go with Cybele, and this is fun, before I read this part. And then, I think I went into the Amazons, and that's where I found about Cyrene, but we'll share that in another video. Okay, Cybele, the great mother of the gods, from Ida, Magna Mater Duem Idea, brought from Rome and Phrygia in 204 BC. Her triumphal procession was later glorified by marvelous legends, and the poets told of edifying miracles that occurred during Cybele's voyage, or Cybele's. Her holy anti-chronic image was carried to Rome by under the Cumaean Sibyl, a personification, same cave-dwelling goddess herself, as the great mother of all Asia Minor. And so what was Asia Major? Was that Tartaria? And wouldn't it be another Sibyl running Asia Major? What in the body we have major, minor. You have major, minor. You don't just have minor. Something has to be the major. Who's the major? Because now Asia is what we're told Asia Minor was. So where was Asia Major? Just saying. Okay. As a great mother of all of Asia Minor, she was worshipped especially on Mount Ida, Mount Cephalus, Cyzicus, Sardis, and Pessinus in Galatia. Okay, and then they talk about her festivals and games, her other names. Other names for Cybele assimilated her to every significant form of the great goddess. She was the Bersithian mother, the Genetrix. She was Rhea Laborn, goddess of sacred calves, known as her image marriage bowers. She was called Augusta, the Great One, Alma, the Nourishing One, Santissima, the Most Holy One. Roman emperors like Augustus, Claudius, and Antoninus Pius regarded her as the supreme deity of the empire. Augustus established his home facing her temple and looked upon his wife, the Empress Livia Augusta, as an earthly incarnation of her. Okay, so her other names are Kubaba, which we already said. These you just heard. Kuba, Kube have been linked with Kaaba. This is where we get the Kaabal. This is how they're literally telling us, like, hey, we stole all your stuff, Great Mother, and now we're using it to control the world. And help people forget who we actually got all this information from. Okay. Stone at Mecca, the Kaaba stone at Mecca, a meteorite cube that bore the goddess's symbol and was once known as the Old Woman. So, and then it goes into that, I put stars next to this. One of her names, Antia, made her the mythical mother of the earth giant Antios, who was invincible as long as his feet remained in contact with his mother's body, the earth. Hercules conquered him by holding him up in the air. Churchmen believe the powers of witches came from the same sort of contact with Mother Earth. Arresting officers often carried witches to prison in a large basket so their feet would not touch the ground. Okay, so it's just, this is how powerful we are. Okay, so Montanos, mountain man. Wait a minute. Montanos means mountain man? Like Montana? What? I mean, we know there's a lot of mountains in Montana, but is it named after the mountain man? Okay. A priest of Cybele who identified Attis with Christ, Montanus maintained that women were agents of the goddess and would preach the prophecy as well as men. Of course, this went against, the Orthodox Pauline sect. Paul and Peter were like, oh, no, no, no. Anyways, he was declared a heresy, was declared, by saying anything about that, it was declared a heresy, and many, they did a lot of not awesome things to those people. Especially those in Asia Minor. So I do think that where's Asia Major? And I think it was ruled by women. Okay, so I'm going to end this video. So I am just going to mention this. I'm sure it's in this book somewhere. Otherwise, I wouldn't have written it down. But I think I looked up Amazon, and we will go more into that one next time. Okay. But before we go into that, I'm going to do a video right now about the 9-day calendar and numbers and the energies that are coming up. Okay. So for today, that is our story / continuance of the Haida peoples and deities, and then a little bit more into the great goddesses and great mothers of, I think, the entire world, but also the Americas. And ta-da, okay? But yeah, check out in the 9-day video, in the 9-day calendar video, I go all the way into December, and I'm telling you, it's the moon. It's the moon. It's the moon. I don't know why they have us so distracted with the sun. Until next time, take care. And thank you for being here, listening, subscribing, sharing, and for doing what you do. All right, until next time.